Sorry, Don. I'm not recording yet. While we get everything set up, any general discussion, questions answered? Did anyone break anything today? David, did you break anything today?
Not today.
Did anyone fix anything today?
I put another CD drive because I couldn't get CentOS 7 in there. My other one wouldn't read it.
Okay. And how do you like CentOS 7?
I don't know.
I
don't like the idea of System D.
System D is awesome.
I don't know. It came out in, what was it, CentOS 5 or something?
System D came out in 7 only.
Well, it came out first and then they pulled it back.
Right, but the modern System D is a different animal.
Is a different animal? Thank God.
How many of you guys have used System D? Familiar with how it works?
What is it?
System D? It's like the awesome.
It's like
so basically System 5 and init system is going away.
Oh, those things. Okay.
And a new sandboxing system's coming up where you can literally apply C groups to everything as it starts. And C groups allow you to control memory and CPU access, networking access, disk access. I mean, if you get really cool, you can even have services start up and control their I/O packets per second. Packets per millisecond if you want to get really specific.
But I'm the only user on my machine.
Right, but you have to earn your geek cred somehow.
That's true. So I have a trivia question that I've forgotten the answer to. Linus's country of origin was what?
Finland.
That's what I thought. And then the second trivia question was, so if the Scots break away from the UK, what top level domain will they get?
That is running on that discussion's running on Nanog right now. In ISO codes, they have a reserve for SC, which doesn't have anything to do with Scotland. The Gaelic name for the land was, I can't pronounce it, but it's a really big word.
But it was SC?
It was either SC or it was SC. There's a really old reserve in the ISO standards for this. But they're concerned that it might not be very easy to explain. So, for example, Germany's DE, and a lot of people don't know their French and don't know their German to understand that DE is correct. They're expecting GR.
DE is correct. There's another one out there that confuses me, and I forget what it is. For Deutsch, yeah. But there's another one that's like, oh yeah, that's right. That's the way you guys spell your name.
Well, Spain is ES.
Yeah.
Yeah, but things like that.
But for that actually makes a little bit more sense to most people.
Not Estonia?
And what is Estonia?
I don't know.
It's not ES?
Now that there's no USSR, it's probably RU for Russia.
Yeah.
That's a good question. When did the Soviet Union broke up in '92, and the internet went wild in '94? So I guess we.
There's an ISO standard. Okay, it has nothing to do with technology. The ISO standard for 2-letter country codes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, just in all things, not just internet, but all things.
Yeah, so like mailing and everything.
X500, I think, is standard.
X500 is a directory service standard from IBM.
Oh, okay, then.
which is where SSL certs come from. But no, the ISO standard is like 800 and something. It's a pretty old one. It's pretty old, and it states, for example, we're the U.S. We're not USA. It's a 2-letter standard, and it's going to be fun what happens with Scotland for many reasons.
Would Soviet have been some abbreviation of CCCP?
Well, see, when the standard was set up,
Soviet no longer existed.
That didn't really exist at the time. So, it is kind of old.
Well, it predates the Soviet Union. The standard is back from what, the 19th century.
Some of the naming, yeah, is kind of old.
I guess the International Telegraphic Union probably had to have two-letter country codes.
But it is a fun topic. So it's
ISO
interesting.
3166.
I'm sorry, what?
3166.
3166.
Well, I need to read
What's the year on that one? Oh, come on. Scroll.
1974.
1974.
We had Soviets then.
Before this.
Soviet.
SU, so
A Soviet.
67.
20th
Soviet
century.
Union was in the 20th.
well, but it's in the early 20th century. That's why I said you have to go
The
back.
18th, October the.
Yeah, but it's
So-
1917.
So
early in the 20th century.
what's interesting though is that there's other countries which have had splits. So for example, Sudan is now South Sudan and Sudan.
Yeah.
Czechoslovakia.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Czech Republic.
The Czech Republic and the Republic of Slovakia.
Well, not only those, but the Yugoslavia that broke up into like 5 pieces.
But that's debatable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some people question how many pieces.
And then there's like the IO domain, which is actually for Indian Ocean,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
but it's
The
pretty
Indian
much.
Ocean is a country?
It's a region.
There was a government at one point that did have a lot of the islands that we would know as Indonesia. So whenever the Dutch gave up control in the 80s or whatever, that is whenever they took over the islands again or something.
I thought I thought Iowa was west, I guess it's all of Indian Ocean. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's definitely an interesting thing, but it's really interesting because Scotland, for all their things we think we know about them, are quite a tech-savvy country. It's where the color TV was invented. That's where,
Really?
yeah, there's an immense amount of inventions that are credited with Scotland.
Scotch.
Some of the ones that
Scotch, yeah.
NBC invented color
some of the
TV.
ones that we claim were actually done in Scotland.
I'm sorry?
Some of the inventions that we claim, the
Well-
United States claims,
So,
they weren't done here first.
so some of the things that happen, people don't quite read the full sentence quite right. You know, so Motorola was the first company to sell a color TV. They may not have invented it, but they got it to the market. And that's a different battle.
Yeah, I may be overstepping my bounds, but I think Scotland's the tech center of the UK. It's not down south. So it's,
I would say that Ireland is much more advanced.
is Ireland part of the UK?
Part of it is.
Northern Ireland is.
I guess that is true. Part of it is.
But on the big island, Edinburgh is pretty much the center, isn't it?
Welcome, come on in.
Come into the dark.
Well, those were my 2 trivia questions.
Welcome to the dark
We can now
side.
go back to questions of import and meaning.
So,
Import and meaning. Ooh.
so any other generalized questions before we get started? Did anybody have something they want to talk about, complain about?
Someone loaned me a little USB video capture dongle
Okay.
from Sabrent. It uses a Syntec chipset.
Okay.
There's a Syntec chip, which is called an STK1160. And it works fine on Windows with these Windows drivers and stuff. But the only thing I can get it to do in Linux, using VLC, Cheese, MPlayer, is it shows a test pattern rather than the picture that's supposed to be shown. Shows vertical bars that look like they're supposed to be different colors.
So are you using Video for Linux to talk to it, V4L or what?
Well, I remember one of the programs, one of the windows that you can check mark things, you can check mark, do you want to use that?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was one of the things I tried, was that check mark that, didn't help. Anyway, I'm just goofing around, clicking on this and clicking on that, I can never get it to work.
Take it to a Slack meeting. They'd love to play around with it.
You said capture. Does it have video composite in?
It has your red and white RCA pin jacks for audio. And the
Now,
yellow-
you did plug something that
Oh,
produces
yeah, I was
video
using
into
the
it,
output of
right?
my camcorder. Yeah, it worked in Windows.
But you probably need a driver like video for Linux.
Well, I learned that supposedly the driver for this STK 1160 is actually compiled into the Linux kernel.
So you probably just need a mod load. Okay, so yeah, you just basically find the module that's missing, just do an ls mod, see what's on your system, and you might need to actually mod probe it and load it in. But that would be a good thing to put on the discuss list so we can have some traffic on it. Yay, Super Stan made it.
Yeah, if you figure out how to get those to work, I think Micro Center has about half a dozen of them for about $10. $10 each.
Woohoo!
The man with the color TV.
Yeah. He has a good projector.
Oh, we have their attendance sheets.
Yes, those are also important. Stan's already filling one out right now.
Good.
Here, give me that one here.
You'll file it?
I will make sure that that gets filed in Stan's clipboard. So bear with us while we get everything set up. We were waiting on the super projector.
Oh, that's fine.
Being carried by Super Stan.
Never expect to have to drive in from Old Monroe today.
From where?
Old Monroe.
Oh, my. On the road? Oh, my.
They blocked to help my cousin crawl under the.
Is that a stylus?
Yeah. Wow.
That's a real stylus.
Yeah.
Wacom.
It's a tablet. Yeah.
It is a
it's-
Wacom
It's kind of
brand.
expensive. If I had to get it again, I probably wouldn't get a Wacom one. For quite a bit. There's a lot of cheaper knockoffs.
That are
That
just as good.
That are, yeah. That work
Sometimes
as
the
well.
just as
So
good
Stan,
as
did you
is
fix or
quite-
break anything other than your
Yeah, sometimes. I've never tried them.
Well, maybe we'll get another
your
Wacom
cousin
after.
relative's basement crawling?
Yeah, that's a long time.
You want a VGA, right?
VGA or HDMI.
What, plumbing?
It could be very-
I have HDMI if we have a wire.
Oh, you were
I have
supervisor.
HDMI
Oh, you do?
input, yeah.
I mean, they have cable.
On the
Oh,
emergency response team, safety gets
That's
caught.
not how we go.
Do we have an HDMI cable?
It's in the lid.
In the lid,
In the lid.
the box.
It's in the box.
I have no idea if it works or not.
Oh.
Well,
It does.
To test it.
I've used it.
So he has confirmed it. Well, this is just for the confirmation. Yeah, it's a lot easier than figuring out which of the 3 or 4 VGAs is the one we want.
Andrew, is this yours?
No, that belongs to the other projector. We'll get it later. Let's see, anything else fun that happened today? What was on Slashdot today? Nothing
Is anybody
special?
going to get up at 2 a.m. and watch the 2-hour special on the election results?
Scotland?
Uh-huh.
Will the Queen still be Queen of Scotland?
Well, she still have her home in Balmoral Castle.
But will she still be the Queen of Scotland?
Is she the Queen of
Still
Scotland?
the Queen of Australia and
Yeah.
I think she will.
So
And if it passes, what happens in Spain? Because they're talking about being inspired by the Scottish efforts.
Oh, wow, here's some news. Looks like Larry Ellison is stepping down.
Whoa.
Hear that?
No, I didn't hear this.
Where have you been?
I was in meetings.
Excuses, excuses.
Wait.
Is that too big?
And Mozilla Labs closed today?
It's cutting off. Oh, I see. It's duplicate.
Closed for the national holidays, it's closed
Extended.
forever.
I guess we can still do that.
There, I think that covers that.
That'll
Apparently,
be-
I need to read the news more.
That should be. I think that'll be fine.
Okay.
Where are we gonna get our Mozilla updates from?
We haven't seen that. Seen that.
Haven't had any action on that in 6 months or so.
Oh, Stan, did you get your upvotes for your distros today on DistroWatch?
Yeah.
Okay. I encourage everyone to go on to DistroWatch and vote against Stan.
What is Stan doing on DistroWatch?
Mint,
Nick and System Rescue and Debian.
Oh, well, don't vote against the Debian, but yeah, the others guys, yeah, to vote against.
uh-oh. Filled up. No, is it?
Yeah.
No.
You're gonna have to run an extension all the way from Old Monroe.
Kind of a long throw for that little bulb.
Well, I guess we will start to.
Anybody, there's one on the wall behind you.
We can start handing the reins over to Scott here, who's going to do a presentation for us on Krita. Scott, are you about ready to?
I mean,
He needs to sign in first.
Well, that's okay. He can sign in later too.
Oh, okay. Sign in now or sign in later. But do sign in.
I could have done
Sign in twice, you get voting privilege.
How many of you guys know what Krita is?
Oh, wow. Don't everybody raise their hands at
We're
once?
all gonna learn something.
We're all going to learn something today, aren't we?
Now, if we theoretically know what Krita is from having read the prospectus. Abstract.
Or having used it.
Oh, I was thinking if we know enough from having read the abstract, that
I don't know if the abstract.
Yeah.
it helps. Oh, okay.
So I guess I could go. I know it was originally, I don't know, it sounds like sometimes these presentations are 2 hours. Do people like talk for 2 hours?
Yes, you have exactly 2 hours right now, so go.
Okay. I don't know if I could fill the whole 2 hours.
They'll have questions, it'll be good.
Okay, good. Then yeah, if there's like questions at any time, like feel free just to interrupt me.
What's the meaning of life?
But, what?
42.
Earl Grey
42.
tea.
So, yeah, it's a little bit about myself. I originally heard of this group from Gary Meyer. He came to a game developer meetup group, which I go to quite a bit. Yeah, I talked with him about it, and I think I wrote a blog post about Krita. Somehow, he either read that or somehow he found out that I used Krita. And then he's like, oh yeah, you should talk at the Linux group, type thing. So I'm like, oh, okay, let's give it. I'll try for it. Yeah, I generally don't give too many talks. I'm usually more of like a nose to the grindstone, just like production worker, get stuff done type of stuff. So hopefully this presentation will be all right. So obviously, it sounds like most of you haven't used Krita before, so that's I guess good. So I won't be too redundant with what I'm saying. Maybe so. I guess maybe the first thing we could do is maybe go to probably the website. I feel like it's good to like see what it is. So Krita, it's very different than like programs like GIMP, where I feel like GIMP is more of a image manipulation program, closer to Photoshop, where you take photographs and you do things like adjusting the levels, or you kind of manipulate photographs, where Krita really isn't designed. I mean, it has some of those features, but it's really not specialized and catered toward that audience. It's really more towards artists, like digital
Data
paint.
input
Hmm?
as opposed to editing.
It's more input and almost like creating things from scratch with either illustrations. So we try to make it for concept artists, digital painters, and illustrators. So a lot of the decisions that go into either new functionality or UI features, we try to keep that audience in mind when doing it. Because and then obviously like the website, And just FYI, I guess disclaimer, I actually designed and developed all this website. So like, usually whenever I was trying to come up with the direction of how I wanted the website to like look and function, we really want to have a strong differentiation saying, hey, this is for creating artwork, not for image manipulation. So I thought it'd be a good idea to have like just like a slideshow and just showing a lot of different artwork.
Is the name
Yeah.
Krita like kind of derived from create? Kind of?
It's actually German. The people that started it are from Amsterdam, so it's German for crayon, or I always forget. Let's see,
Or Dutch?
or maybe it's Dutch.
Yeah, Amsterdam's Dutch. Of course, they could
Oh,
be.
okay, but it's Dutch.
Just because they're in the Netherlands doesn't mean they are Dutch, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I think it had some name like, oh yeah, maybe that
Okay, Image Shop.
crayon.
Okay.
Oh, it's kind of renamed to Krita.
But they renamed it to Crayon after it was K Image
Oh.
Shop.
Yeah, they renamed it 2 or 3 times. I thought they had some weird, they had some weird trademark issue going on with their names. So I think that was most of the reason why they swapped it out. Yeah, it's actually part of a larger suite called Calligra, which is a KDE thing. So it's kind of like a suite of applications. They have a lot of like Office type stuff. I don't think it's really used very much, and most of the people that I hear that use it don't really use a lot of these other products. There's generally better versions of them. But yeah, they have like a Word program, like an Excel type of program. And pretty much the central hub of like why they're all collected is they're all written in the Qt framework, which is all just C++. And have any of you used Qt, the Qt framework? Or Qt as some people call it.
Oh, Qt. Okay.
Yeah. So it's pretty much like a C++ type library where the idea of it is that you could take the code base in any operating system and you can just transport it, and then you could just compile it, and then it'll more or less have a pretty stable version on that operating system. So there's some things that they have to. It's not quite that easy to get it working that way, but that's the idea. But all of these kind of fall under that umbrella of the same code base. So Krita is just one of them. So this is part of the Calligra. This is their alternate website. I guess this is part of that. But this is the Krita website's more of the specialized. I guess more of the marketing version, trying to promote the application itself. So that's that. So yeah, there's a bunch of sections with that. So yeah, that's kind of an overview. So yeah, they do quite a bit of updates pretty often with it. They just had a Kickstarter that did pretty well for the next version. So I think they have a full-time and developer for I think the next 6 or 8 months, adding a bunch of features to it for their next release. So that's that. That's probably good enough for the website. Oh, actually, so when you download it, it's of course it's a free program. So it's been developed for probably about 10 years. It's actually kind of an older program. I'm not sure exactly why it's been kind of under the hood. Maybe GIMP's kind of stolen the limelight.
Well, these guys may actually know its other names. This was K-Office.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's part of K-Office. Okay. So yeah, they have it compiling quite a few different versions of it. So they've always had Linux. They just introduced their last version, their 2.8 release. They released like a stabilized Windows version of it. So that seems to be getting a lot of downloads. So that seems to be helping. And then with their last Kickstarter, they actually just started getting a Mac OS version of it. So they have a binary that you can grab from it. It's pretty experimental. There's a lot of memory issues that it's still having, and it's not really all the features aren't there. But yeah, I guess it's better than nothing. And then if you want to grab all the source code, you actually have to download the entire Calligra source code for it. I don't know if any of you guys do the development or whatever. But you kind of have to download the entire library with all of the different packages, and then you can through a lot of the they call them switches. You can specifically say what you want to build and install and compile, so you don't have to install all of the packages. If you just want to like do development on Krita or whatever, just one of the programs. So yeah, that's that. That's probably
Building Krita on Linux for cats. Huh?
yeah. I'll get to that. So yeah, if you're this actually helped me because actually I'm starting to kind of get into the development and building it and compiling it and doing like they use Git for all their source control stuff. So so this helped me get started. So this is actually an artist that's pretty big in, I guess, the open source art community. He's like one of the main artists for the Blender Foundation. That he does all of the pre-production. So he comes up with most of the character designs for most of their like animated shorts. But he's also really technical. So he kind of put together this nice little like illustrated guide of, I guess, grabbing all the source code and just going through it and building it out. I'm not sure what operating system. I think he does it. I guess it's just, I don't think it's anything operating system specific. I think further down there's certain things that you have to configure differently based off your OS. I think a lot of it's maybe some dependency stuff, some dependency libraries that need to get installed on it. But yeah, it's kind of a fun, more illustrated version of building it, installing it, and then every time there's updates to the source code, pulling it back down and recompiling it. So you're always kind of getting the bleeding edge for the program. So yeah, through the comments, there's a lot of comments. A lot of the comments is kind of nice. People are writing comments like, oh, fix this, update this. That's pretty nice. So okay, enough about the program. We can maybe start kind of looking at it. So let's do this. So I'm pretty much using the version right off their master branch. So it's pre-alpha. So there's still some issues with it. One being that kind of bothers me is like the top thing, someone switched this. So it's usually supposed to go File, Edit, View, and then Settings and Help are supposed to be last. But someone was playing with, and that really bothered me today.
That's a violation.
Yeah, that got me pretty upset. maybe I'll fix that and push it out. But yeah, so this is the program. So the one nice thing, I guess, because it uses the Qt framework, it has a lot of baked-in UI elements. So it has a lot of. Next we make this go full screen. It's really easy to manipulate all of these elements. So you can like grab. It's kind of hard to see on here, but for all of the headers of these, they're kind of like dotted a little bit, so it's easy to pull them off. And then you can either, if you want to, you can actually add them to like other tabs. So if you put them in that, there's a white line that goes around every tab. What that'll do is that'll pretty much add another tab to it if you want. Or if you want to make it have its own space, you can pretty much make it in that type of position where it's not around an existing one, and then it'll kind of plop in there. So it's really nice to. I think it's a really nice tool to update a lot of the UI stuff with it. And the one nice thing that I like about this is like working on the code base, you don't have to really worry about how all that UI stuff works. It's pretty much you just inherit all the stuff the Qt framework uses, and it kind of it's really easy to plug and play and make updates to it. But yeah, we'll just do that. So yeah, that's that. So it has a lot of layer management stuff like Photoshop and GIMP has. You can do basic things like let's draw something. So it's really easy to layers. You can lock the layers so you can't move them. You can do this thing called alpha, it's maybe transparency lock. Which I think what that does is if an area is transparent, let's see, it'll only paint on what you currently have selected. So like you can kind of see it better here. So checkerboard, if you're not familiar with the checkerboard, means that there's actually no data. There's no pixel information behind it, so it's completely transparent. So if you have this transparency lock on there, if it's transparent, it won't get painted on. But if it's kind of opaque or close to opaque, it knows that, okay, this will let you paint. So it's kind of like, they call it a mask, sometimes in image manipulation. So it kind of lets you do that. So that's, a lot of times when people do art, it's really nice because when people, a lot of times draw characters and things like that, they'll do things called block the colors in first. So they'll get like the basic blobs and shapes, and then they can lock the transparency, and then they can add all these colors and shading, and then they know they're going to be able to stay inside that silhouette. So it's a really nice tool if you do a lot of painting and illustration. But yeah, you can do anything that you think you'd be able to do. You can move the layers up, and I should show you if it's visible. You can move the layers up and down, and if you can create folders to kind of do grouping, to kind of group things together. So you can select it. If you can just paste it over here, and then yeah, you can turn the whole groupings off. So it is a pretty nice layer management for everything. And then you can change the opacity of something for how you want to do it. So if you want to just make the whole thing, yeah. So if you want to bring back the transparency, and then another really kind of fancy thing a lot of people use, they're called blending modes. Which what blending modes are and it's a way that layers interact with each other based off their pixel information. So like this is normal, so this is like, I'm just like painting over the top of it. But you can actually have like, you can do fancier things. I know GIMP and a lot of other programs do that. Is you can change the mode. So right now it's on normal, but then you can just do overlay. So what that does is it actually takes the value. So if there's pretty much all of these things are different algorithms that take different pixel data, and it pretty much, depending on the algorithm, things will interact. So something like overlay, I'm pretty sure what it does is it takes any information that's darker, like the darker it is, the more it's going to interact with it. So that's why I think these areas are white and these areas are colored. But yeah, there's a bajillion of these things, and pretty much every one of them is just a different algorithm to do different things. But most of the time, there's so many of them. Usually, what I do is if you kind of just like select one, if you just hit the up and down arrows, you can kind of just like scan them until you see one that you like. Like, oh, that's cool. I'll keep that one. So, but yeah, there's a bunch of them. It keeps all of your favorites, and then it has it just has a lot of them. I think even like Photoshop maybe has like a tenth of what this has, but it's kind of overwhelming. I think how many there are here, but yeah, that can be really nice when you're doing compositing. If you have images on top of other images, and you can make them interact, so it looks like they kind of fade into each other. So yeah, I mean painting stuff does that, but yeah, photo stuff does that, and painting things do that.
It's one thing about this, whenever part of the learning process is going in and playing with the tool, and just that's how you learn it, is you just try all the options and try to figure out what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And be continually diving deeper into the program. That's how you learn in the program.
Yeah.
That's how some people learn.
Well, read the book. That's another way.
Well, yeah, is there a book?
There's a couple of manuals online for it. I know the one maintainer. Yeah, he's kind of wanting to make a regular book, like a published book, like a print book.
Another way to learn it is write the book.
Yeah, you could write a book. Yeah, he's definitely put the call out there, like, hey, if any writers really want to be up for it, you can write a book on this.
Any YouTube tutorials?
Oh, there's a lot. Like, let's go to that website. So the website stuff's okay. I actually want to really redo the way the learning section is. So there's a whole learn tab on the website that there's tutorials. So they have like official training DVDs where it's kind of like a donation. Like you'll get a DVD, but most of the proceeds go pretty much back into the organization to help the development costs or hosting or things like that. So there's that's a paid one, and so he wanted to put that on top. But there's almost all of them are free. So here's one series with doing comics. So like if you want just adding frames, and I think most of these just go to like YouTube. Most of them are all YouTube, YouTube training videos, and yeah, they're kind of all over the place. But yeah, a lot of it's kind of broken into different areas. There's things on the user interface. Really, probably the brush. Probably the most complicated thing that even with artists themselves get the most confused is, like, I'll go over this later, is the brush engine, with how it's extremely powerful with what you can do with the brushes, but it's also, people aren't used to it with how powerful it is, so there's a lot more options that a lot of other programs have whenever you're creating and configuring brushes for everything. So yeah, there's Pixel. Yeah, we'll go over a lot of these brushes, but yeah, there's a lot of YouTube videos that do a lot of this stuff. And then usually with any of the programs, like, I don't know if you've seen like speed paintings, that's always really popular, where it has it's pretty much just an artist that he's not really going over tools, but he's pretty much just doing a painting like time lapsed, and maybe it's like once every 10 seconds or something like that, and then just from there it kind of just shows you an artist's process of how they're creating a piece of artwork. And I don't even know if this is Krita. Maybe some of these they use 2 or 3 programs.
It says it's Krita.
Is this one Krita? Maybe it's an older version of it, 2012. Oh, maybe it's changed. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, maybe it's
Krita 2.3 on Ubuntu 11.10.
Oh, 2. Okay, wow. Okay, so yeah, it's a little. I guess it's changed a fair amount, but. So yeah, I know a lot of times artists, they like watching these speed paintings, they call them, and the reason why speed paintings are really popular with artists is artists, they get the whole like blank canvas syndrome. Like when you see a blank canvas, it's like, oh my gosh, like what am I supposed to do, type of thing. But if you kind of put like a time constraint on yourself, and it's probably like a lot of projects, like if you know you only have so much time to get this done, it almost forces you to focus, and you kind of just like start throwing stuff together and just getting it to work. So sometimes it can help kind of get through like a creative block. So that's like that's usually why I've heard that's what good speed painting does. But yeah, a lot of artists like doing speed painting. So that's one way to learn the tools. They're not specifically telling you how to use the tool, but you just by watching them with how they're using the tools, you can learn a lot. Because sometimes they use the tools in a very creative way that might not be usually shown otherwise. But yeah, there's no like printed. I'm not aware of any like printed books.
But you can see their selections or choices while you're doing this.
I mean, is there narration too?
I mean, for
the
training ones, there are the speed painting ones. There's usually just music because it's usually like 10 times speed.
Okay.
So it's usually not. But I think things like the layers and editing one. Maybe okay, this one maybe is printed. And this needs to get organized a lot better.
So if anybody wants to volunteer,
yeah, if
there's
anyone wants to
openings.
volunteer. I was looking for volunteers. Okay, a lot of this looks like obviously they're not. Oh, maybe all the stuff in here. Let's see, like. Yeah, YouTube's pretty good. I felt like I've learned a lot of it just YouTube, and then just playing around with it and like finding some tool, and it's like, wow, what does this do? And then Googling it, or sometimes I don't know what it is, and the forum's pretty good, asking for things. I don't know if this has audio. But, no. Maybe, I don't know if this one does. Kind of hit or miss with these. I haven't really found too many like really like professional ones. Looks like maybe it's text over it. I really haven't gone through too many of these. I'm more of the type where I'm just kind of exploratory. I just like click a button, see what it does. Click this button, see what it does. And if I get really stumped, maybe I'll Google it and see what it does. But yeah, that's definitely something I think that that this program really needs is a lot better training on how to use it. I think it's very powerful, but there's not quite as much out there with how to use it. So I kind of more or less answer your question.
How much horsepower does it take
Much
for
horsepower?
this to be satisfying?
I know they don't support Windows XP, which I know that's not a hardware requirement.
I was thinking about a Linux. Would a Raspberry Pi be able to do anything with this, or is that just way
I don't
too?
know. It might. It can be kind of a hog in certain situations. Like some things a lot of artists. One of the big things with a lot of these applications that can be really hog is if you make the brush really big.
Mhm.
Because obviously the bigger it's getting, the more it needs to be in memory. So if you make this go 1,000 and do stuff like that, like that could really slow down a computer if it's not very fast. And it uses OpenGL for all of its stuff, and it's enabled by default. So I think sometimes if there's problems too, you can disable the OpenGL and just use software rendering if you had to use that with it. Yeah, it's probably not the best program for if you're doing like really high quality, like high res paintings or work. It probably wouldn't be the best.
Well, you'd probably need a bigger machine.
You would need a bigger machine to do it. But I mean, if you kept everything really small, I would think you could do it. Like if you had a really small document and you kept it simple, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to do something like that.
There's the challenge of minimalist art,
Yeah, you could do more of the minimalist style with everything.
something like XKCD.
Yeah, you could do stuff like that pretty easily on this one. So yeah, that's that. So yeah, the canvas has a lot of. So if you hold down spacebar, you can kind of pan things around. There's a lot of shortcuts. Seems like for most of the management of it. So spacebar is that. Spacebar, and if you hold down control, it's zoom in and out. Another popular one, if you hit spacebar and shift, you can rotate it like that.
Ooh, that's cool.
So
And when you do that, can you use the cursor arrows to shift them increments and rotate it in step increments instead of the mouse?
oh, I mean like rotate like a 1 degree.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just like you said, instead of moving the mouse, use the arrows to go click, 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 click.
Oh, I think. Let's see.
Mostly to rotate.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I thought there was some. I know there's 6 and 4. It rotates by a certain amount.
Okay, that gives you some stepping.
Yeah, and I think you can configure the degrees that you want to do with it. But
And if you cannot do that, go in and fix it so you can.
yeah, you could go in there and fix it. Yeah, because it's all open source, so it's anybody can play with it. But yeah, I think the only thing that I think that the rotation is really nice for is usually brush strokes. Because I'm using a tablet thing, and usually whenever you're drawing, it's like if you're right-handed, it's easier to draw like angles like this. So if you have to draw really like straight angles like this, it can be kind of difficult just because of the way your
Well, that's like
your
if you were
arm
working
works.
on a real drafting table, you probably might want to tilt the paper when you're drawing.
Yeah, exactly. So that's usually what it is. I mean, if you have to draw straight lines, there's other tools, and like they even have a straight line tool in here to draw straight lines if you.
And have snapping to angles probably, and all the straight line drawing tools that we've had for generations.
Yeah. So it has a straight line tool.
This looks really neat.
Now your brush. Oh, I'm super. 0.1 big. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of the canvas, kind of manipulating the canvas. One thing that's really cool that I haven't seen before is like if you want to resize this, like if you want to make it bigger, or shrink it down, and things like that, you can use the image and do size canvas that way, and then which is not what I want to do. Maybe scale the resize. Okay, and you can do this type of resizing where you can change the pixels per inch and then the height or width or whatever, and then you can change the scaling interpolation if you want to. Another neat way is if you don't want to have to go through those menus is if you scroll all the way. If you scroll kind of to the right, there's a little right arrow that kind of shows up for it. So then you can just click that, and then automatically it'll just add stuff in. So you can kind of just, if you wanted to do that really quickly, you could do that without having to go through a menu. And then you could always crop it down if you wanted to. But yeah, so that's kind of how you resize stuff with it. Let's see. And then there's some different workspaces you can pick for it. So if you're in an HD, so and then I think you can customize your own workspace and say that you have a way you like to do it. So it has that all built into it. So there's probably the easiest way to select it. I feel like in general, like everyone's usually painting, so like most people want to get started painting. So the first thing is if you get this grid tool, and kind of just a grid of all the different types of brushes that are with it. Now I downloaded some of them. I think all of these ones in black I downloaded from the website has some other like they call them resources, but they're different brush packs. Like that David Reboy artist guy, he has a bunch of brush packs since he uses a lot, and these are his favorite ones that he frequently uses. So then you can get all different types of effects, and you can change colors and whatever. So yeah, that's kind of just how you can select all these different brush types with it. And if you want to edit, if you want to edit one of them or do something, if you want a lot more control over the way the brush looks, you can go into the brush editor, which it is. That was right. Oh wait, there it is. Okay. So this is, I think this thing needs, I think from a UI, I don't know, I guess as a job I'm actually a user interface designer, art like developer, and like this needs some work. But how this works is you first have to select an engine of how the brushes behaves. So a basic, like most brushes that most people are familiar with are pixel brushes, which is pretty much you select a shape like this, like that, and then you can add all of these attributes to it if you want to. And it pretty much creates all this variety. So right now I'm on the brush tip. So the brush tip is more or less the shape of the brush. And then from here you can change the size, and then you can change the way it's rotated if you want the default rotation to be the same. Then you can change the spacing with it if you want them really spaced apart. So I'll go. My tablet thing still hold down, but it's only putting a stamp down every so often. So you can change the rate at which that's done. Yeah, and there's all kinds of things you can change with it. And a lot of these are very dependent, I think, on tablet pressure. So I think if you don't really have a pressure pen, it makes it a lot more difficult, I think, to utilize a lot of these tools. I mean, almost all of these have these curve editors to see how these different things will be
What are
affected.
popular tablets?
I mean, the Wacom ones are really popular. I thought there's another one called Unovo. That's more like an off-brand. That's a lot less expensive. That's nice. I really like. I don't. There's another version of Krita that's made for the tablets. That's really nice. That I almost like. I like drawing on this, but I almost like draw. I would rather draw straight on the screen. I think these are kind of. It takes a while to get used to these because when you're drawing like this, it's like you can't look at this. You have to look at the monitor when you're doing it.
On the other hand, your stylus is in the way and you can't see what it's doing.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I guess the nice thing about it is you can see exactly what's going on. The hard part is I think there's just like a little bit of like cognitive load on your brain to translate every
To be looking there and drawing here.
to where you're there. Like every time you move, you have to like realize, because even with this, I realized that like when I move this way, if I just move a little bit, it's actually double the speed because I have this much space on my screen, but my monitor is extended. So if I go all the way over, I'm going across this monitor
to a different monitor
and back on my monitor. So so there's a lot of like work you have to do in your mind. I think sometimes whenever you have to do stuff like this, but you get used to it. But I don't know, it's a little bit of work with the tablet. But yeah, I'd probably say that I think when I first got this, it was probably maybe two weeks maybe, like using it a fair amount before I was getting pretty comfortable with it. And there's like special hotkeys with it that you can change the monitor. So like right now, you can change the monitor. Like right now, like it's calibrated to so that all the way on the right is this end, and all the way on the left is this end. So I can't even access my monitor now. And then I can press another button, and then it changes. So you can kind of change what monitors that this picks up on. So that can help. Whenever you're in the middle of painting, I can just ignore one monitor. I mean, I usually use 2 monitors whenever I do everything. So it's nice to kind of ignore one whenever I'm painting, just to make it easier whenever you're putting down brush strokes.
Do you ever put the toolbox up on one monitor and have the paper on the other monitor?
I usually keep them.
I hear that as an example of people give.
Oh, like using a lot of their tools on one screen,
Yeah.
and then like the actual canvas on one.
Mhm.
I mean, you could do it that way. I don't think it's. I mean, usually when I work, I actually don't even use a lot of these tools. I mean, if you hit tab button, it goes into like canvas mode, they call it, which is more of like an advanced user mode that's more shortcut. And then you can do a lot of things if you want, and you don't have to worry about all the UI stuff on it. And then if I would need something, I could come back. And like usually when I work, I don't even use this color picker because there's another shortcut tool that they call the Docker, which is if you context click it, it'll kind of bring up a tool like that. And then you can select the tool, and then it also has all of the previous colors that you've selected, so it kind of has a little history. And then what this thing is kind of like a palette of what you want to remember. So right now it's not set to any of them, but I guess I haven't gone over this, but like say if I liked this brush right here, and I'm like, oh, I really want to like, I'm probably going to want to use this brush a lot because I really like the way it functions. I could pretty much right-click it, and then you can go assign a tag to it. So then it pretty much puts it in that like bucket. So one way I could get to it is I could just go Scott, and then it just filters out. I already added some other ones, but it pretty much has just a chunk of what you like. So it's on here, and then as well as now if I want to, I can have different predefined ones, so like Scott, and then it'll populate in there. So I could just pick whatever brushes I like. And I think that'll work on here. So then I could just, from here I can pick whatever colors I want. I can pick all the brushes I want. I don't need any user interface to get in my way with anything. And then there's shortcuts for a lot of the different things. Like a really common thing is like maybe making the brush size bigger. So a shortcut for that would be if you hold down the Shift key, you can actually move your tablet left and right. And then if you use that left and right, it actually makes the brush size go up and down. So
Sounds a lot like what the drawing programs have been doing since the 1980s and earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the same commands, which actually pretty well thought out in the beginning, I think.
Yeah. So that's pretty nice. So like, I feel like for like really heavy users, like I feel like I usually use more of that mode because there's a lot of these tools here, but I mean, I feel like if you're like doing something like painting, you don't need 99% of those. Most of those are more manipulation programs or manipulation operations that you don't really need quite as much. But yeah, I mean, you could easily take these tools and move it to a different monitor if you wanted to. Yeah, it has multi-monitor support.
Depends on your project too, I think.
I guess it would depend on your project or what tools you need. Yeah, because there's a lot of different stuff where this is at. Toolbars. It's what they call Dockers. So there's a lot of different types of things. Like there's one that's called patterns. So like I could see after a while this is going to get really messy if you have to have a lot of these. So I could see it really nice if you're using patterns for some reason. Like to move that over to another monitor, you can't see it. I could use it. You could use it on a different monitor. So, but yeah. So that's that.
Yeah, to really do that, we ought to have 2 projectors side by side.
Yeah, or some way to show them on top
Split screen,
on top of each
picture in
other
picture,
or
yeah.
something like that. Yeah. I don't know if they would have. They probably have something like that. That's that. So yeah, there's a pop-out Docker thing. I can show you that. That's pretty nice. This feature actually just got added 2 days ago. This is like brand new. What the brushes used to do, it used to just remember the last like 6 brushes that you had, and that's all the functionality it had. But then you're like, oh, it'd be much nicer to have just the select ones that you want to pick. Because most people only need maybe 8 or 9 brushes that they're going to use for everything. So yeah, that just literally I changed like 2 days ago. So if you download the program, it's actually not going to function this way. It's going to function the other way with this being more of a history tool. So what else? So we got. So it is. Let's see, I'm trying to think of. Oh, so the brush engine. So there's all the pixel type things. There's like a smudge tool, which it's more of a. I think it's more of a blending. So if you want to take two different colors and kind of smudge them together, there's a lot of ways to. It's pretty much an engine that specializes in just mixing different colors together. And then there's special sketch brushes that you can use that they look like normal lines, but where they start behaving is when the lines start intersecting each other or getting close to each other. It starts adding all of these like artifacts to them. So like kind of like how I was doing like that, that, and then.
Is that analogous to something in the real world, or is this just something totally synthetic?
Yeah, I think it's more synthetic. I think it's more of like an artistic thing.
If you write the rules on what a brush or a pencil does, I guess it's.
Yeah. Oh, I think some of it's kind of experimental. I think sometimes a lot of artists they like using things that they're not familiar with, because I think when you use things that you're not familiar with, it forces you to get outside of your comfort zone. I know a lot of like problems a lot of artists have is they feel trapped by what they know. Kind of like development would be the same way. Like if you only know one programming language, like yeah, you could probably learn something else, but like you're very comfortable in one, so it's easy to kind of stick to that sometimes. So I guess like from an artist, sometimes like if they have to use something that they're not familiar with, it kind of forces them to like look at things in a little bit differently.
You have to think about what you can do with this.
Yeah, you have to think like, how am I going to use this? And then sometimes you just start drawing things, and then some of the strokes that go down wouldn't be strokes you would have thought that would have worked, but yeah.
Or you might not have had any idea how to make that stroke, and suddenly there it is.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it kind of creates this. Yeah, there's a lot of experimentation with art, just trying stuff over and over and over and over again until like, oh, this looks good, I'll keep that. So yeah, there's a lot of iteration, and then like there's another one.
Wires.
Yeah. So then, that's pretty neat. And then I don't think it really matters I don't know if it really matters so much. I don't know if it matters how big the brush is. I don't think it. I guess it's pressure sensitive, but yeah.
That is really cool.
So it kind of creates a neat little effect with everything. The brush is huge. But yeah, that's pretty neat. So yeah, there's a ton of brushes that do things, and they all kind of behave a little bit differently. What's this one? Harry brush. Maybe I don't have it selected. Oh, there we go.
Ooh.
That's kind of weird. That's kind of a weird one.
Harry square. Oh, it's a square. It's actually a square brush too.
Oh yeah, I think it's a square brush. So yeah, there's a lot of.
Oh, and you can choose the shape.
Yeah, you can choose a shape with it. Whoa. So yeah, it's kind of different. So yeah, it's kind of fun to play around. You can get some cool effects doing these things. And then the shape one, there's another open source project that's called Alchemy, which it's called a creativity tool, which it's made specifically for creating artwork where you almost lose control of what you're drawing, but it adds all of these modifiers to how you're drawing them. So like for an example, like you could draw like a line, like
oh wow.
So what it does, it pretty much automatically fills it in as a closed path.
Mm-hmm.
So this would be one modifier, but like the way that program works, there's all these other things. So there's another one, a modifier called displacement. So as you're drawing, the whole thing will shift based off your mouse movement. So if you go bottom right, your whole drawing will shift to the top left. So like there's all of these weird behaviors that it does, and it's kind of the same idea before it kind of like breaks you out of the creative block. To kind of coming up with all of these shapes and ideas that would be hard to think about just from your mind. But this thing pretty much stole that part of the source code from that, and it's reusing that in this stuff. And then there's like a spray brush type icon.
Well, the first time I got spray, it was so bizarre. The longer you hold it down, the heavier the paint gets.
Yeah, it kind of spreads out a little bit. But yeah, with all of these, there's just a ton of options. So yeah, there's a massive amount of tinkering you can do with all of these. So like, hatching, I don't use this one a whole lot. I guess hatching in general is a technique if you want to simulate different levels of grayscale. And it's kind of like similar to like I know screen printing, it was really popular. Like we'll just use like a regular brush. Use this one. So if you want to simulate like a little gray, you could kind of go like, I don't know, you could kind of go like that. So if you have a line here,
Do you understand the background of that?
the background.
Do you understand why hatching was developed? Or
I thought
to
I know
reduce the density of the ink so it doesn't get shiny.
okay, I didn't realize that. I thought it was more of they have to use 100% like ink, like screen printing. You have, like if you lay down a color in screen printing, it has to lay down 100% ink. So if you have to use one color like black, how do you simulate all these levels, all of these gray levels?
If you're doing a copper engraving for the printing plate, your only choice is you draw a line, you draw a bunch more lines at different separations to get different simulations of what the mind replaces with.
It's very much like the dotting on the old newspaper printing.
Yeah, exactly.
You just can't go 100% ink. It just won't stand up.
Yeah, so that's okay. You understand it. But.
You look at stuff from the late 1800s, and it's just
From the 90s.
stretches from the 90s. I'm not thinking about the cross hatching, but the stuff before that, when it was all hand scratchings.
Yeah.
Do you understand why the copper had the ridges?
Why it had the ridges?
Yeah, why they would do the line ridges?
Tell me.
Because so it'd be consistent from stamp to stamp.
The ridges.
So, for example, the old photograph carving,
Uh-huh.
there was always lines, and that way they could do the ink, and it would work out.
Ah, okay.
Okay. So.
It's all basically a collection of lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a collection of lines. So. Yeah, that's kind of what that is. I don't think it doesn't. Well, it got really slow. I don't know what just happened.
Everyone's doing
Weird
it.
memory leak or something.
Still going.
Oh, maybe that must be a really heavy, expensive brush. So this one's kind of weird. This one's called a grid brush. So what it does is it actually, almost like pixel art, it kind of puts everything in a grid, kind of a grid format. And then one nice thing is you can divide it by pressure. So if I'm pressing really lightly, it does 1. If the harder I press, it'll subdivide it. So that's kind of cool. You can get some neat effects doing things like that. And one website I designed a little while ago. I use that a lot. It was a video game, kind of a video game website that's coming up in I think next month. Like STL Scatter Jam. I've been working on it. So I pretty much use Krita to do all the artwork for this. But yeah, I kind of use that divide. I use that grid pattern here, type of thing, where I just picked all of these different colors, and I just did that divide by pressure, and then yeah, it kind of just creates, I don't know, just kind of creates an interesting effect with the pattern, with everything. But yeah, I feel like with a lot of these brushes, I feel like if you do it a certain way, I think you can make almost anything interesting as long as it's kind of different. But yeah, that's a pretty neat brush. You can do some cool stuff with that one. Curve. I don't remember. That one.
I like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Kind of a cool one. I haven't really used this too much with any projects or anything, but it's kind of.
Maybe you will.
Yeah, maybe I will. I don't know. It's pretty cool, and I get some cool stuff. Sometimes when you change the settings. sometimes if you just play around with the settings, you'll. Oops. Oh, history size. Yeah, a lot of it, I guess, like, yeah, I don't really know what I'm doing. And then I think if you can reset, like if you really mess stuff up, there's a default preset, which I think that should be changed to reset. Maybe that might be a little better than default. But yeah, that's that. So that's cool. But yeah, there's just a lot of all these different. Ooh, that's kind of a crazy one. Yeah, there's all these different effects, but yeah, they're all just based off different algorithms. I don't know how they're. I haven't really looked too much into the code with how these are defined across the board. Yeah, they're kind of. I don't know. But yeah, really between them all, 99% of the time, I'm always on this pixel brush. I think you can do almost everything you want. Everything you want with that, and you can make your own brushes.
Just do that one where as you're drawing a line, you might have first selected an image, and then as you do the line, it keeps repeating that image over and over. I remember using a program where you can make a vine like go completely around.
Oh yeah, I know Curl Painter. Curl Painter has a lot of stuff like that. I don't know if you can.
The rubber stamp? Is that...
Yeah, I mean,
it would be your pattern image with a selected.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of simulate that with like say for example, like I don't want that big. That's big. One thing I've seen, I've seen with like chain links, and things like that. But usually, when I see people do like this one,
Well, that's similar to what
but it's kind of cheating. I mean, usually all it's doing is it's setting up the properties like it's adding spacing to the brush, and you kind of just tinker with the spacing until as you're drawing it, they link up.
So
and then,
I guess what I'm curious about is if you can decide what that initial image is going to be, select your own, and then have it do that.
Yeah.
Instead of chain links, maybe something else.
Yeah, so I think like that one, it's theory out. It's set up to the chain link here, but I mean you can change it to any one of these, or you can create your own.
You could
Would the stamp function be?
The stamp. I haven't really used the stamp. I don't even know what this does.
Looks like it doesn't have any presets at this point.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do some research on this one.
So
Maybe
would you say that of almost anything that you've ever heard of, this probably has more ways of doing it?
I mean,
It's just
I feel like it's different. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of good programs out there that do stuff. Like I haven't seen one for like doing painting that's better on Linux. Like if I was using Linux and I was doing painting stuff, like I haven't seen a better like painting program to do stuff, like to do painting related things. I mean, I used to use GIMP a little bit. I would imagine GIMP is probably better for like photo editing. If you're doing photo editing type of things, I think it has more tools catered towards that. But like if you're specifically more interested in like doing artwork, like I think like I haven't come across any programs that are better than this.
I've heard stories about people using Photoshop just for painting.
Yeah,
You give a bunch of students,
yeah.
High school, junior high, whatever, Photoshop and let them draw, paint, and just explore the painting abilities of it.
Yeah.
Without a photograph.
Yeah. Photoshop's probably, I'd probably even say like out of like the entertainment industry, Photoshop's probably the most popular painting program. Even though it's not made for painting, I think it just has.
But it works.
It works, yeah. And I think it's been around so long, it has so many tools.
A really good tool, it has a purpose, but then you can ignore that purpose and do something entirely unrelated.
Yeah. And I think what they do, I think why that's successful for them is they use a lot of UI they call progressive disclosure, which pretty much means that they hide a lot of stuff.
Oh, and then
until you need it.
You get to the next level.
So that's like hovering over a button or less pressing down a button, and then it'll show you more options. Or they hide a lot of things behind like either menu items or things called buttons, which are like buttons that are like icons. And then like I know like even like Photoshop will do things like for like a tool like this, instead of showing all of these tools, they'll just have one tool and they'll put a little arrow by it. So then you have to like hold down the tool.
It's called a revelation arrow, I think.
And then it'll kind of show. It's kind of like a combo box. Is that just when you hold it down, it'll show you more options. But yeah.
This is the sign of an application that is deep.
Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, that's kind of, I think about UI stuff a lot. And I feel like the best type of UIs are the type of user interfaces that are kind of get out of your way the most. And the only time things are there are when you need, or like when you need them. They're easy to get to, but they're not taking up a lot of space. Like, I think this user interface, I don't know, it's kind of getting on a tangent with user interface stuff. But yeah, this user interface, I think I haven't helped out too much with it, but there's a lot of things that it does kind of funky. And it's really creative, I think, how it does it, but I think if you try to be really creative with user interface stuff and like verbiage, I think it doesn't communicate very well to people because they're not used to it, they don't understand it, how it works. Like this one, like most people don't understand like that this actually is a drop down, and you can actually select flow and size, and there's a plus icon here, but it's not adding it, it's actually just replacing what's up here. So you could potentially have two that say size here. So it's kind of like, I guess it's kind of neat when you understand it, but I just
Figuring it out is something else.
yeah, I feel like it's different enough, and I don't think it adds that much value.
One thing I've come up with not too recently was easy is hard. Making this easy
Oh yeah,
use
yeah.
is a real skill, a real art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think with most of these programs, and I think like even like things like this, like people generally when they request features for all these applications, like, oh, I wanted to do this, I wanted to do this.
How?
Yeah,
How
developers are
make it
like, where is this going? Where should I put this? Like, should this be configurable? Should this be a checkbox? Should I put a checkbox and a slider? Like one of the main developers, he just added this spacing thing in maybe last week, and like I don't even know what this auto does. I guess I don't know if it resets it.
It does something.
It goes
with
from
the
the 1 to 0.1, but I don't know if that's dependent on something else. But yeah, sometimes like things like that, I think when they add features in, they don't think about it until they actually start implementing it and adding the feature in with the code. And then when they start seeing that, they're like, oh, we're gonna need to add this in case they want to backtrack. But oh, no one's even talked about that before.
But
So
then
they
they
kinda just throw
don't
it
know
in
how to
there.
describe it.
Yeah, they don't know. They might not know how to describe it. Or they don't know how to say it. So like, they'll put auto.
There was hover text.
Yeah, and auto mode is basically will be
Calculated automatically depending on
its
its
size.
on the brush's size.
I guess on the brushes. Size.
And we should say on the brush's size instead of on its size.
On its size, yeah. But yeah, I feel like even like this, yeah. But okay, I don't know.
But that's a start.
Yeah, it's a start. But yeah, so that's kind of the brush. But yeah, the way it works, and the only thing that's kind of weird with it too that I don't like is if you want to like save your own brushes or like save changes you've made, like say if you want to start with this brush, but then like say if you want to make a preset that has a really small brush size like that, you actually have to. This is kind of like a really smart. This is like a smart field. So if you just click here, it'll overwrite it. But if you change the name, it changes to save.
That's
Like
neat.
that. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I don't think most people understand it when it's like that, but yeah, that's kind of how what you would do when you save it. And then the way these thumbnails are generated, it actually it doesn't say it in here, but this box right here, when you save it, whatever's in this box is what's saved as the thumbnail. So I think what some people do is they save it here, but it actually exports it out, so they just replace it later with like a nicer looking image with something like this. But yeah, that's kind of how that's how the brush engine works. So yeah, the brush engine is really powerful, and yeah, there's a bajillion options that are.
It sounds like
stuff.
part of learning this would be to have kind of a forum where a bunch of people get together and show off what they've learned and learn from each other. Like one person will explore this portion and another one will explore that portion, and they'll feed back and forth and pick up, oh, I didn't know it could do that. Or,
Yeah,
I
there's
wondered how to do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I think with like this program specifically, it's hard because I think stuff that people don't understand, they generally don't see. They don't look at. They just like overlook at.
And they don't look for it.
And they don't look for it because they don't know what it does, so they just automatically just look for things that they do know. Like one example is this precision way down here. It's actually a really cool feature, but the way it's shown here, you can't really tell what it's for or what like why you would use it.
Is there hover text?
So I think there's not hover text here, but there's hover text if you hover over this. If you actually hover over this, which I don't think any other slider has hover text over
It
this.
doesn't really tell you anything.
Yeah, but what this does is it actually changes the quality of the interpolation. So like every time that you draw something here, it has to like pretty much put in memory all of these patterns, and then it has to like draw it. So what this is for is this 5 is like really it should say like high quality. So this is a very high quality. Will be a high quality brush if you do something like that. So actually, it's a line tool. It's really made more for really large brushes. So sometimes like if you use a really large brush like that, it'll be really slow on your system. So what this precision thing was made to do was so if as your brush gets really big, it actually kind of dumbs down the quality a little bit of it, just so it can work a lot faster. So it's kind of a speed performance. So if you work really huge, you can do that. But again, there's also an auto feature, which just has some crazy stuff. I looked at the code because I don't even know what it means still. But yeah, the auto feature pretty much it's kind of similar. So as your brush gets bigger, the precision will kind of change based off your brush size. So it kind of auto detects it. So yeah, there's a lot of technical stuff going on with it. But yeah, I definitely think there's a lot that could be improved on with it. But yeah, that's kind of the brush engine. So yeah, it's super powerful. But yeah, a lot of it's tinkering around and playing because I don't think it is really documented that well. What a lot of this does. A lot of people that I've seen that go over this stuff, it's generally somewhat basic of what the training is. So that's kind of one thing I'm hoping I can do maybe when I get into a lot of this UI stuff is, I don't know, fix a lot of these issues with it. But yeah, so that's the brush. What else can we go over? So maybe we could go over some of these other neat tools. So, and some of these are more Photoshop-y type stuff. Yeah, there's basic like shape tools, which I don't know. I usually don't use those too much. So, and like line, you can create these like polygonal type lines and shapes. And then
Standard rubber band, anchoring rubber band around.
yeah, so and I think it has a thing they call like Bezier type of thing. So you can create like pretty much the same thing, so you can do points like that. And then it just picks up whatever brush you have selected. So that's pretty neat. Another thing that's pretty common is these symmetry tools on here. So a lot of things when you draw are very symmetrical, like a person's face or a car, or I don't know, like a lot of like most living creatures it seems like are pretty symmetrical for a lot of the shape of them. So this pretty much just is where you can move the center point around, and then it kind of creates a little whatever.
Then can you move the center point and have a different?
Yeah. So then you can just move it over here, like that, if you wanted to. And then it just moves it like that. So that's pretty cool.
Has anybody ever seen that technique on any other paint program?
Yeah, I think so.
There's symmetry stuff I've seen. There's a lot of mobile devices.
Yeah, it's called cut, paste, and rotate.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, you're right. Yeah, if you do that, sure, okay.
Yeah.
I'll be quiet.
No, that's great. The symmetry's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen a lot of mobile applications that have something very similar. I think they actually took this from. There's an Android application called ArtFlow, which is a really awesome tablet painting. Like you just draw straight on it, like for an Android device. But it pretty much uses this exact same thing. I think it came out before. But yeah, you just turn it on and you can move it around and then.
Now that axis is vertical only. Can you rotate the axis 45 degrees?
You can't.
You can rotate the paper.
You can rotate. I think there's a bug in it. Like you can rotate it here.
Yeah. Now rotate the paper 45 degrees. Now draw something symmetrical.
Yeah, it's I don't think it's gonna work.
No.
I think yeah.
Okay.
Still
That's-
keeping
that's a bug.
symmetrical on the vertical.
Yeah,
Yeah, make some
I
more.
think there's a bug in it. I think it needs to. This whole line needs to, whatever be.
You need to
needs
be able to rotate the line.
Yeah, it needs to rotate along with it. So yeah, it follows the position right now, but it's not following the canvas rotation. So yeah, that all needs to get added because actually this is actually a new feature for the next release that's coming out. So
It's not finished.
so they
Is it only vertical? There's no horizontal foot?
there's a horizontal too. So like this is the horizontal one.
But that doesn't give you 45.
And let's just make sure that the horizontal's got the same bug.
Yeah.
Let's
Yep.
see, yeah,
No. Yeah, the horizontal's got the same bug. Okay.
yeah, it's got the same bug. So, but yeah, that's pretty nice. So there's that. There's another really cool tool it kind of like is like a symmetry tool on steroids. It's called the multi-line tool. I call it the kaleidoscope tool. I think it's like more informative of like what it's doing. So what you can do is so most of the tools actually have a bunch of options that go along with them. Tool options. Tool options. Oh, shape properties. Maybe it's hiding. Okay, maybe it disappeared. So most of these tools, whenever you most of the tools, whenever you use them, they actually have all of these options for configuration type stuff. So this multi-line tool, what it does is you can, as an example, you can do that. Let's change the axis. So let's say the center point's here. So when we draw, it actually subdivides it by 6. So you can actually choose how many times you want to, how many axes you want to subdivide it by.
It's called fold. We're talking symmetry.
Oh, folds. Oh, maybe we should call it that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know what? I might put in that fold. So it's called folds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You can change. Yeah, you can change how many points you want to do it, and then of course you can change your brush at any point, so you can make it. Actually, I like this one better in selecting brushes. But yeah, you can.
Can you rotate the reference point so that?
I think you can.
Axis
Oh,
angle.
wait, show axis. Oh,
And then it says axis angle, you have an angle to set it to.
Oh, there we go. Mark the works. Oh,
It'll be easier to see with a 4 fold instead of 14.
Oh yeah.
Easier to tell that it's actually rotating.
Like that. Oh, whoops. Put off a bit. There you go. You want a blend tool. There you go. Yeah. I think it works.
That looks like it's rotated.
Yes, that one works. Or if it works like this. Oh, see how this one works, right? Okay.
Yeah, that looks good.
So that's a pretty cool tool. I've used this a few times on some artwork. It works really nice on like Gothic, like cathedral, like sometimes I think like these like big Gothic cathedral windows that have like tons and tons of folds.
Rose windows.
Yeah, like rose windows. Yeah. So like this works amazingly well. It's like subdividing it by 20 or 30, and then adding that detail on there, and it's like it looks really nice. So yeah, and then.
Can you take your canvas and tilt it respectively? Yeah.
So you tilt the canvas?
Yeah, I mean like do
I see.
a transform.
Oh, a transform on it. Okay, yeah, we can go over that. So yeah, there's different transform tools. So there's a moving you can kind of do with it, and then there's hold down shift, you can scale it. Like
And if you
normal.
don't hold down the shift, it'll scale asymmetrical.
It'll scale based off whatever you want. Yeah.
That worked with MechDraw.
They worked with Nitro. This stuff still works, yeah.
Mhm.
They're still using the same ones.
It's like, they did it nicely, it's like, okay,
Just-
that's a starting point.
Yeah, keep doing that and add on to it. Yeah. Yeah, so that's that. So, yeah, all of these tools are for that type of transformation, and then you can.
Sometimes you can unlock it so it doesn't stay rectangular, and then you can squeeze the corners in.
Yeah.
Like that, that's what I was thinking.
Oh, like
Yeah.
this. I like that.
That's one way you can get a perspective.
Yeah, I think this is kind of how you have to do it for this one.
There could be different ways.
Yeah.
There could be more than one way to do it.
One thing I noticed too, it's kind of a bug, is it also transforms. Oh,
Vanishing point.
look at that! I've never seen that.
Mhm.
That's kind of cool. But yeah, I've noticed it actually transforms all these squares too.
Hmm.
These, I guess the squares aren't towards it. I would think if they got down too far, they'd be kind of hard to select.
Mhm.
But maybe not. But yeah, that's, I guess you can do these, like, these transforms.
Yeah, that's the perspective. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's kind of what you're referring to,
Mhm.
doing something like that. But, yeah, so there's that, and there's a really cool tool that I like. That was like, let's draw a face really quick. Let's draw like that. Draw a face. Draw a face, and then you can use this really cool distort tool, which is kind of like I think in Photoshop it's called distort, but this they call it warp. So you see all these points, so you can warp things like this. So there's like a point here, and then there's 9 points here, type of thing. And then you can actually get a lot of control over it. So there's the 9, but you can change the type of density you want it.
Mm. So you have smaller areas of distortion.
Yeah, so if you want really fine tune. So that's the default, doing it like that. You can even create your own points of distortion. So say for some reason you want to make this part of the lips smirk up.
Mm-hmm.
You can just click right there and it creates a point.
Mm.
Right here. Or say if you want to like make these droop a little bit. And then you maybe go lock points. That didn't work very well. I thought you could do that.
You can't just import a JPEG and do that.
Well, you could, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, this is just like I'm drawing on it, but you could easily import a photograph.
This is just an image, and
Yeah.
take any image.
It's just bitmap data that it's transforming and moving stuff
So
with.
with a minimal amount of messing around, you'd be able to do that kind of distortion.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think it's,
So, but
I've never known how to do that.
Mhm.
but yeah,
There's a bunch of ways to do it.
But yeah, so that's pretty neat. Do it like that. I haven't really played around with this, but yeah, I've seen demos of them. Some doing some really cool stuff with these custom distortion stuff, with moving arms around and changing faces and making all kinds of crazy stuff with it. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, that's kind of, and you can only do one at a time. So if I start transforming, you can't kind of, if you want to do a transform and then a warp, you kind of have to do them as 2 separate steps. So you
Like
can't
you do one and lock it, and then
yeah, you can't transform this, and then the second you hit warp, it kind of defaults.
you can't do them as layers.
You can do them as well.
Remember with the tools with Photoshop, you could apply a tool to a layer and produce an effect, and then put on another layer and it would filter to a different effect.
You could like, I'm not sure what you mean. Like, so if you like would copy this layer, and you do different things to each one.
It's not really a copying. It's the
Applying the transform to each layer.
yeah the transform would apply to what another transform had done, and
So there's like a parent one, then all the children
yeah,
would use that.
and so if you wanted to redo the third step of 5, you could go back to the third one and redo that one a little bit, make changes, and everything else after it would receive the same change.
Okay, so it's
It was, I saw this like 5 years ago, or more.
okay.
So it's hard to
Is
remember
this
exactly.
so is this like a smart object type of thing? So you like edit one instance and it
Mhm.
updates everything?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think there's something like that. I think you can convert it to. I think they have something like that. I haven't really played around with it. It might be either a clone layer or
Vector layer?
maybe a file. I think it's called a file layer,
Mhm.
where it actually references an external file. So then you can edit that, and then it almost is like it creates instances of that on it. Maybe it's something like that. I haven't
Yeah.
played around too much with.
I haven't done enough of it to be able to talk about it intelligently.
Yeah. But yeah, I know it has some stuff like that you can do. So yeah, that's kind of transform tools, and it has a lot of other basic stuff like cropping tools. Like you can crop stuff with it. I mean it's pretty. I feel like that's pretty standard on all these. Then you can.
You could do something like have a vignette that's partially transparent around the sides with a fuzzy border or something like that.
Yeah, there's like like effects type of things. Yeah, there's a bunch of effects that it can do in here. So I think that layer. Oh, filter. Here we go. Yeah, so it has quite a few different effects you can do, like Photoshop type stuff, and blurring, and yeah. So there's quite a few different things. One thing that's really nice that I like is this color to alpha. So a lot of times when people do artwork, they will like draw stuff. Well, they usually scan stuff in. A lot of artists like drawing stuff on like a piece of paper, and then they like scan it in with a scanner. But then like for whatever reason, like they're drawing. I should draw something realistic. But yeah, they'll bring a drawing that say they love this drawing, but the one problem is now there's white, and then there's black, and it's all on the same layer, and they need some way to separate. They need some way to separate this out, so the black can be all by itself on its own layer, separate from all the background. So how you do something like that? One of the filters is it's in the colors area. It's called color to alpha. So it kind of default selects white. So you select what color you want, and then it pretty much just drops that, almost like a green screen type of thing, where you just select what color you want. It'll just drop that out, and then you can just select the threshold.
You'd work with each color separately. Right?
If there's multiple colors you want to drop out, yeah. Sometimes with images you have to kind of play with it to get it to work. Usually what I do, sometimes when I scan stuff in, if there's all these different colors, usually I'll desaturate it just to make sure it's all like black, white, or some version of grayscale. And then from there you can try to separate it as much with something like the levels. And then yeah, you can use something like that to make it work. Yeah, so that's how that works. Let's see what else. Oh, another cool thing, and this is actually probably more for game artists. Use this a lot. They have to do a lot of things called like seamless textures. So it'd be like a pattern that they don't really have enough space for. Like say if they have to coat this whole world with grass, like if they had to make an image that had to take up like 100 square miles, the image would be ginormous. So they pretty much have to create an image that's a lot smaller, that'll tile, that'll just repeat in all directions. So it's pretty much a way for the game people make to save space to be able to do that. So how this program tackles it, and we'll resize it, because usually whenever you do graphics for video games, you do graphics in something called the power of 2. So they're either like 256 by 256, 512 by 512, 128 by 28. So they usually set dimensions, and I think it has to do something with the memory. When it goes into the memory, it's more optimized, or maybe that's like the buffer size. I'm not sure what it is with how those numbers exist. So but yeah, for some reason they always use those type of sizes. This would be a pretty big one. So say if for some reason you want to create like a forest of a bunch of trees for this, we could do something like we could create one tree like right here, like this, like that, and then maybe it's hard to create trees because the trees can't. It's going to be hard to know how it's going to tile. Like whatever is here, whatever goes past here is going to be showing up right here the way it tiles. So what this thing does is there's a tool called wraparound mode. So what wraparound mode does is it takes this image and it scales it out in all of the axes. So the axis, it's easier to show. Let's see. So it's in. So it's called the wraparound mode. So W. So you do that, it actually changes the canvas, so it automatically scales out in all directions like this. So it makes it really easy if you want to create a forest or something. if you want to, because you probably want to fill in this space so it looks more seamless, they call it, so it looks like it's all one image. So you can just do something like that. So you can just create whatever, some more trees, you just tree in the background type of thing, and then like whatever, like this, and then make a little tree like that. So then, so if you needed to do something, you could get that to work, and then when you're done with it, you can hit W. Like W. So W is the shortcut for this wraparound tool. So then when you're done, you can just do that, and then you can save it out, and then when you import it into either a game or a 3D, like a lot of like 3D programs use it as well when they're creating textures. But yeah, you can just export it out, and then when you import it, it's automatically tileable, and it works really well. Works really well for it. A lot of websites use this too. A lot to make things tileable. A lot of backgrounds, like using tileable backgrounds. So that's a really cool feature. I've never seen a program that does something like this. This is like amazing for doing tileable stuff. If you would have a need for something like that. Let's see. Is there any other questions on anything? Makes sense.
Well, you mentioned the export, and I was wondering, when you export or when you just save it, what format is it going to write? I imagine if you're going to save your project, it's got its own, I don't want to use the word proprietary, but its own.
Yeah, it's its own, proprietary type.
But you can also export it in, what, JPEGs and pixel bitmaps, BMPs, and...
Yeah. So like, if you just want to save it, I feel like the saving works well for like the proprietary formats. It has like, it calls it a KRA file that does it, but if you want to export it out to like a JPEG, it's usually this export option is generally what you want. So you can, it has quite a few different options. So it has all like the BMP, JPEG, there's PNG if you need transparency. Or I think it does, I'm pretty sure, I think it does GIFs. Like, I really don't see GIFs a whole lot anymore.
Well, but GIFs can be animated, right? I mean, that's
I guess GIFs,
all the rest of them are static, and GIF
GIFs
has
can be
the ability
animated.
to be an animated GIF.
Well, PNG can be animated.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess GIFs are quite a bit smaller because they don't have that alpha channel. So they're like they're at least a third smaller because they just have to worry about RGB type data in them. So
Is SVG an option?
I don't think so. I mean, this is really just a bitmap program for the most part. So there's one tool in here that I think you can do vector stuff. It's like a calligraphy tool, which I don't know. I've never really used it. I never really cared for it. Maybe they took it out. Yeah, I think they took it out. There used to be a little calligraphy tool that would create like a vector layer that would do things, but that's the closest I've seen to anything vectorish, like SVG. Yeah, it's pretty much all bitmap graphics for everything. Yeah. So there's quite a bit. I don't really know some of them. Like, I know they just added these R16 and R8 height map data, which I feel like some of the things that they add to them, they work well for other like engines or other platforms, depending on, I guess, what customers are using for these. So, but yeah, I think all the common ones. I feel like the most common ones are like JPEG, PNG, and probably GIF are probably the three most popular that I see most people use. And then you can, in TIFF, if you need something more uncompressed, I feel like TIFF's a pretty good uncompressed bitmap format to use. So it does all those formats pretty well. So that's that. Let's see what else.
Amazing. It says it's unstable, but it works
Oh, does it actually work on the Mac?
on the Mac. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting that story because on the Kickstarter page, that was going to be like their super stretch goal to have a Mac build going on with it, and I think the main programmer maintainer guy, he pretty much he spent like 100 hours trying to get to work on a Mac, just I guess help the Kickstarter campaign go. Just say like, hey, like we can't actually do this Mac thing. It's going to be like it needs another maybe month or two development time to kind of stabilize it more. But yeah, he kind of just threw that out, even though it was like a super stretch goal of like 75,000, I think they were looking for. But yeah, he kind of just like threw that out unexpectedly. Like he kind of just did it like during the campaign. So yeah, I noticed the campaign. I think that's probably what helped them be successful. Like I don't know if many of you are familiar with Kickstarter with a lot of those fundings, but yeah, it's kind of like a crowdfunding way where someone pitches a project, and anyone that's interested can like fund their own money as opposed to like seeking a venture capitalist or some other outside funding for something. But yeah, so like that's kind of how that originated. He was kind of using the Mac OS build as a marketing tool to like help get the Kickstarter campaign funded. So he kind of just threw that out there, and he got an extra, I don't know how many thousands of dollars, I guess, from some Mac people that really wanted to see it on a Mac. So yeah, there's no any bugs or anything. So yeah.
On the output color, is it the CYMA,
Oh, the CMYK.
whatever that is?
Yeah, I know it has support for RGB and CMYK. I can't remember. I feel like I generally work in RGB most of the time. I know it. I think that's in the export options. I can't remember. I know you can set that. I think in the color profile. Let's see, maybe that's. Information.
If you're gonna print it, right, that's, you want that.
Right.
Yeah, well, there's actually, I think it's actually considered a color profile the way it's set up. I think the information, I think when like when information is stored in CMYK, I think the information is like stored differently about the colors as it is, because I feel like RGB is like using the light, so it's just a simple like RGB value, like 255, 128.
CMYK is
Yeah.
ink values.
Yeah, CMYK is ink values, so like, yeah, I know there's some complexities with how that works.
There's different palettes for different uses.
Yeah, so I know it supports it. I haven't had to use it too much. I can't remember where that's. And oh wait, profile. Oh wait, here maybe that's it. Okay, there we go. Oh yeah, okay. So RGB, whatever XYZ is, just made that up.
Well, that's the.
What is it?
Okay, I don't know. It's that's going to be. It's just different expression of how the colors are described.
Yeah, yeah, CMYK. I feel like the three I see the most are probably RGB, CMYK, and Lab. Those are probably the three most common ones I've seen. But yeah, I know usually if like you would send this to the printer, you usually want to make sure it's CMYK. The color mode set to CMYK before you send it to the printer, because it does change. The colors do change quite a bit if you convert it. When you convert it, so yeah, it is. Yeah, it definitely is a thing.
There it is. Okay. I was going to ask where to find it, and I found it.
CMYK has black as a color, which is important for printing.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, so it just uses I think it's called the subtraction color model, where I think most RGB uses the addition color model, like the light model. So like, kind of goes with, so if you use 100% of all light, it equals white. If you use 100% of all color, it's going to become more black. So it's kind of just different. Yeah, it's just different ways that color is interpreted. That's that. That's a fair amount. That's quite a bit of it. Yeah, there's quite a bit of configuration options for this thing. Let me up here. So yeah, there's quite a bit you can configure. There's a lot of auto saving if you want to that you can configure. That's pretty nice sometimes. It's pretty stable. I haven't really had it crash on me too much. Even I'm like right on master, and like it doesn't really crash on me too much. Yeah, I mean, most of the stuff you don't really have to change. But I'm trying to think of anything that's kind of important. Yeah, I should do that. Some people don't like some of these things. Some people turn that stuff off. The only other thing that sometimes artists really care about are like the color models. So that you can change how you want the color to display. So I usually use the triangle one. I know some people like these square ones because they think they get a bigger range of colors with it. But yeah, that's kind of used a lot. I haven't really used some of these. I feel like for being an artist, I don't know. There must be some really technical artists. There's a lot of options to do everything with it. So yeah, it's really configurable. The one thing that's really not configurable nearly as much as I would like it to be are the shortcuts. You can configure the shortcuts a little bit, but you really can't. It puts them in these canvas input settings. But I mean, really, I feel like there's really not that much you can. There's really not that much you can change. I mean, most of it's hard coded in the application. Like I don't know, like there's a few of the tools that have shortcuts. But yeah, most of them, a lot of the basic tools don't even have shortcuts to them, which I think is kind of crazy. Yeah, the multi-line has a queue. Yeah, kind of put switch shortcuts just in the tooltips. But, yeah, that's good. So yeah, I mean that's mostly it. The only other thing I guess I think sometimes is important. I know photo editing they use this a lot too. Is a lot of like the selection, how you want to select things, and that's just down here. So if you just want to like edit a certain area in here, you can do that like that. So it'll just select that, and then I don't know if you're familiar with Photoshop. People use Shift and Control to add stuff, but this one doesn't use that for some reason. You have to use like A to do things. If you hit A, it'll add to the selection. And I think if you hit S, it'll subtract from it. So yeah, you can either do squares or circles, and you can paint with it as well. And you can either use this little marching ants style selection, or you can also use. You go way down here. I think this is like a new feature they just added. More like a painting. Oh, that worked. Oops. Maybe I don't know how to use this, but that's how that'll work like that. Maybe I don't know how to use this. But that's weird.
Several different ways to do selections.
Yeah. So there's
There's smart selectors that automatically snap to the outline. Selectors. Magic brush.
stuff like that. Yeah, they have like a magic wand tool. I think that does more of a color selection. And then the only other thing that's like shortcut, I think people use like Control A is selecting everything.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to unselect everything, it's Control Shift A. For most people are used to Control D for deselecting everything. So that shortcut's kind of different. So yeah, some of the shortcuts are a little bit different than we used to. The only other thing that's really different, you'll notice there's no eraser tool on this. So what it does instead is anything you're painting with, it actually uses the E tool. So if you hit the E tool, it automatically changes it to an eraser. So if you instead of clicking a tool or a shortcut, it changes the mode, and then it changes it up here like that. So that's the only thing that's kind of different that most programs use. They have an eraser tool, not an eraser toggle that is actually changing a blend mode. It uses a blend mode of an erase for it. So that's one of the things that's kind of different. Yeah, I mean there's some other stuff with it like gradients. You can add gradients and patterns, but yeah, that's kind of it. It's kind of Krita in a nutshell what it can do. So yeah, so I think it's pretty good. It's probably not the best image editing program. I think it would probably be better if you do photo stuff, but yeah, if you do like artwork or anything like that, I think it's a pretty good tool.
So, would this have a way to like? I mean, one thing I've seen is converting a photograph, making it look like a watercolor or sketch or something like that. Does anybody?
Oh, I see. Yeah, there might be stuff like that. Let's see. If you grab a photograph or something, I don't know. I'm scared Googling image searches.
You could do Tux the Penguin.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's say that one. That's really good. Alright. Really got cartoony. You can just copy it. Copy it on
That looks really neat.
here. You can just add. Like, I think that's just what would be like a filter then. And,
Artistic.
oil paint. Ooh, that might be working. I don't know if it's the tools are really that good for doing that. One thing that's kind of hidden, they still have it. If you hover over this, you can actually
Hmm.
bring that out. And you can actually like kind of scan through them.
Oh, yeah.
So you can see like almost like previews of all these different effects. But yeah, it doesn't really do too
Oh, that's getting,
that one.
yeah. Of course, then if you layer these so that you can blend them together.
Now, what kind of file was it that you downloaded?
I think it was a PNG. So I think that's why it kept the transparency. It kind of picked it up whenever you copy and pasted it.
Otherwise, you'd have to edge detect and create the transparency.
Now, would it be real difficult to demonstrate that distortion part? You know, could you try to distort it, make it real big or something?
Yeah, we can try to do that. Let's see. What is this tool? So, warp it. Maybe try this one. Maybe just add
Either
some.
that or make him smart.
Oh yeah, make his head big. If I made his head big, I guess you could do. Yeah. Custom. Let's make his head big. I feel like this tool's kind of. Let me just do that.
Oh my God. Okay, that's cool. I want to be able to do that.
That's what you're thinking about, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, it looks like you kind of need some anchor points. Like I think if I didn't have these points, I think
So you
it
can
would
take
move a lot more.
photographs and make people look like they're horribly overweight or something.
Yeah. You could go to
You
Photoshop.
want to make him look.
You make it look better.
Take photographs of your wife and make her boobs tender.
Yeah.
But add it to the butt, of course.
Mhm. How badly do you want to die?
See, I kind of anticipated that you would have to have what they call like a raw file to do that kind of stuff. But you said you could do it with a JPEG?
Yeah, you can really do it with anything.
Oh.
I think the main thing is if you do like it's like image manipulation stuff. I think the biggest thing to watch out for is like backgrounds. Like if you do a lot of stuff like this, I could see it. It can kind of mess up backgrounds sometimes, and it looks photoshopped. So I mean, usually if I ever had to do a lot of like photo work type stuff, usually what I do is like I actually kind of cut out the entire area, and then I do modification to it to make it look so it's not so like photoshopped is what people call it. But yeah, it's
So
like
the background isn't distorted too.
yeah, to make it look more real. I mean, if that's what you're going for. I mean, a lot of people don't care. They just want like, yeah, it looks funny. They know it's photoshopped. But, yeah. So yeah, it can do quite a bit of stuff. And I guess let's apply it. No, I guess it's a bug. I think I hit enter. Didn't register that I did it. I'm not sure what these buttons do. Spider button. Not sure what that does. Kind of scary. Yeah, that's kind of all. Pretty much all I have. I don't know if anyone had any questions or anything else.
The one thing we didn't do was add any text into it, but I'm sure you can do that.
Yeah, well, that actually brings up a good point. The text tool is not very good in this program, and even the developer is like, yeah, don't use that tool. It's like we know this tool needs to be like redone. So I mean, it's if I have to use text, like I actually won't even use this program if I have to use text. Like I don't know what's going on in the background. Look at that. That doesn't look good. But yeah, like, I don't even know what it's doing. I think they almost need to take this tool out. But yeah, like if I was using text, like I probably wouldn't use this tool more if you had to use text for now. Yeah, that I would say by far that's the biggest weakness in the program. They really need to rewrite that or spend more time on it. But I don't think most artists use it. I think some comic book artists maybe. I don't think comic book artists like it. I think that's about it. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for the program. I'm just gonna start looking at like C++ code.
Well, one of the artists on the sort of the learning page, right? He said he uses, I suppose he uses like a sequence of programs, like you said, draws on paper, scans it in, then uses Krita, then uses GIMP. Or no, first uses GIMP, and then uses Krita, then uses MyPaint.
Yeah.
All these different subtle reasons. Do you have like a pipeline, or do you know other people who use that, like sort of pipeline different software?
Yeah, I've seen people do that. I don't know why they do that. Maybe there's certain tools they like better. I know one artist that David Reboy guy. I think he's really big in just the open source community. So I think he likes doing demoing in a bunch of different programs just to like kind of help promote all of them. So I feel like that's why he does it. I mean, I haven't really found. I feel like if I haven't really found a reason to like have to jump around a lot. But I don't know, like I'm not really good at GIMP or I'm not really good at MyPaint to know. I mean, maybe they have features that are really nice that Krita doesn't have.
Right.
So I mean that'd probably be mine. But I mean I usually use.
So I guess he took the GIMP to soften lines or something, like when he had the sketch, it had detail that he wanted to have go away, and use the GIMP to get rid of that, and went into Krita to colorize it, and then MyPaint sharpen up.
Interesting.
I don't know if that's.
Yeah, so I use, like you scan something in, throw it, take it through GIMP or something, then I'll put it into a ray tracer and bring it into Inkscape so I can do SVG. So it depends on what your goal is.
Yeah, I would think GIMP would be better with like photo manipulation, because I feel like sharpening and like some of like filters. I think GIMP would probably have better tools than maybe Krita would have. I mean, they have filter stuff in there, but I don't think they spent that much time really like, I don't know, tweaking it and really making it like polishing it to make sure it like functions really well. Or I would think that would be like a really big thing where they'd spend a lot of time working on features like that. So, I don't know, that'd be my guess of why they would use that. But I don't know. I guess I'm not really an expert on all those programs, so I'm probably not a good person to ask.
Is there like a resurgence in development on this, or I mean, it just sounded like from the beginning. This is new to me, but it sounded like this program's kind of been around for a while, but now there's this interest in it, and then or is it correct? Or?
Yeah, I really think what's making it big, like why it's getting a lot of attention is, I guess a lot of people use Windows, and I think when they introduced a stable Windows version, I think there's a lot of people downloading it. Like even looking through all the analytics with who's downloading Krita, I would say it's about like 10 Windows downloads to like 1 Linux download, or 1 Linux flavor of the download. So there's a lot of Windows people that never knew about it before. So maybe I don't know if there's maybe news media or whatever that's picking it up. So maybe that's why it's getting adopted more, just because it's supported more widely. And they do have another program. It's called that they started recently. It's another version of it that it's called Krita Gemini. I could probably. It's kind of made for tablets. It's pretty much like a tablet version of this, but it's a little more specialized in tablets. It's made for tools that, or it's made for laptops that can change from a desktop to a tablet. Like those tools that like your laptop and then you can bring it down, flip the monitor, and it turns into a tablet. So I put this little YouTube thing on there. Something I think Intel did. But
It doesn't use like touch screen.
yeah, so it's like here it's using like a touch screen.
Touch screen, maybe that's one of the big differences.
Yeah, it's like here, like they have a whole different user interface for the touch screen device. And then we'll flip it around with a laptop. And then the whole UI changes to a desktop view. So the whole UI is kind of responsive to whatever that is. So this product's kind of new. It's actually there's a site called Steam, which is the way to get a lot of so it's more like a video game website, but they put up a green light thing, which is like that's something like little bitty companies want to. It's kind of like the Kickstarter for video games, where some Joe Blow wants to make a game, but they don't have enough funding, so they get all their friends and community to help say, hey, I'll buy this game if you release it. So they put this on the Steam thing. I think it has a page. But yeah, this is kind of a newer thing too.
Is the Krita Kickstarter still open, or did they actually raise their money? Or?
They already raised. Yeah, they raised their money.
Okay, so it's over.
Yeah, so yeah, it's over. So, let's see. So like, yeah, so this is their Krita Gemini page. They call this product their Gemini package, where it's all of the changes that they do are going back into the open source version of it. But I guess this version is just to help, I guess, boost all the features up for their mobile specific version of it. So it's kind of weird. So you're paying for it, but it's kind of just like a flavor. It's like just a different flavor of it. So there's that. But yeah, their Kickstarter, I think it maybe ended a month or two ago. Let's see. But it was I guess they were trying to fund their next 2.9 release, which I guess we were pretty much looking at the pre-alpha for 2.9. So he was starting to add the features.
Scroll back up. What's the
Oh, the
0
deadline was-
seconds? Okay.
Oh, July 10th.
July
So
10th.
whatever that was in September. So yeah, it was a little while ago.
What was their goal?
Their goal was 15,000 euros.
Oh,
I think that's like $20,000 without, I think.
But they made 19,955.
But they made that, yeah, they made almost 20,000, and I think they actually made over 20,000. They have this page, but a lot of these things they also have PayPal like on their own website for I guess people that wanted to support it, but like they came on too late, so they actually created a PayPal page on their site, and I think they took some additional money through PayPal as well. So yeah, that's kind of how they did.
€300 a person, huh?
Hmm?
They average €300 per person.
Let's go back and see.
Yeah, for 700 people.
Oh my.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the people.
But there's different.
They probably had some whales, they call them, people that like spend a lot of money.
Let's see, there it is, 7,000 euros, and nobody signed.
Yeah. It's like
750 or more, they had one.
They won't maybe 750.
What did they offer if you gave that?
Let's see. Oh, they get to set the priority for all the features. Oh, it's interesting. It's really not even. It's like they'll just work on that feature first.
What's the one above that?
Huh. Doesn't seem like it's really that much.
Two of them pledged 250.
Yeah, it's almost like a project manager. Oh, I see.
Water fragile?
It's like someone makes a tutorial on whatever you want to get. That's kind of neat. And I guess they'll post a tutorial. So that's kind of a neat way to do it. They'll make a tutorial.
5 backers got T-shirts, it looks like.
Yeah.
150 euros.
Yeah.
And then
Let's see. Then there's a bunch
100 euros or more,
They got a USB thing.
printed with the Krita logo.
So yeah, there's a bunch.
75
What did they use
euros.
money for? They should pay themselves?
Get a physical
Um,
copy of the training DVD.
Yeah, it's pretty much like I think if they reached 20,000, that was pretty much a full-time developer for 6 months working on it. But then
Ramen noodles and beer.
yeah, and then I think I don't honestly I don't know what they're gonna do with the other money, like the rest of the money. I'm not sure if it goes in this. I guess it goes into the fund. They actually have like a foundation. I think they call it the Krita Foundation. So I guess it kind of just goes into that with whatever. I'm not sure whatever they do with that. I know they went to SIGGRAPH this year, which that's like a big graphics festival. I think it was in Vancouver. So I know they went there this year trying to promote it and help like spread the word about it as well. So I think they do, I guess, publicity marketing type stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was a Kickstarter. But yeah. So yeah, it's pretty much the program. So yeah, it's a nice program if you do non-game stuff. Pretty much it.
Does anyone else have any questions about Krita? Did you guys write down the name so you can go home and download it?
I have it downloaded.
Uh,
It works.
Well, thank you very much, Scott, for your presentation. after talks, we always give out a gift and a penguin.
Wow, thank you.
Well, if anyone doesn't have anything else to talk about, we can always mosey down to Nick and Elena's and get some pizza. Or you can go home and go to sleep like Stan is.
Don't wake them up.